Good evening, everybody. March 4th, 2025 Zoning Subcommittee Public Hearing and Regular Meeting. The time is now 6:46. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Simpson,
Present.
Alderwoman Scott, Alderwoman McAdam, Alderman McNamara.
Excuse. McAdam.
Say that again?
McAdam, excuse.
Alderman Hargreaves, Alderwoman Barbosa, Alderwoman Saavedra, Alderman Connors, Alderwoman Sanchez, Alderman Santiago. 9 are present. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And will you please read into the record the notice of the public hearing?
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Santiago.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the notice of the reading of the list.
Already seconded by Alderman Russell. All in favor of waiving the reading, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. The reading is waived. So having been noticed properly, we will begin the public hearing. Please remember to state your name and address for the record. 3 minutes. The items for the public hearing are item number 36707 to amend sections of the zoning ordinances to address bright white window strung rope lights. The second item 36708 to amend sections of the zoning ordinances to add libraries, art galleries, and museums as permitted uses in the RO district. The third item is item number 36709 to amend sections the maximum lot coverage from 100% to 90% in the I-2 district. The fourth item is item number 36710 to amend sections of the zoning ordinances to establish regulations for drive-through uses, including vehicle queuing spaces, screening, and site design standards. The fifth item is item number 367 related to CBD by adding a new district, CBDR, that allows townhouses, 2 families, and 3 family uses. The sixth item is item number 36712 to amend the official zoning map to the S2 district located at 271 Clinton Street and 1480 Corbin Avenue to B3 district Avenue and 1500 Corbin Avenue to the B3 district. The seventh item on today's hearing is item number 36713 to amend the official zoning map to change the CBD district located north and west of the New Bright Plaza and bounded by Washington Street, North Street, and Route 9 to CBDR, CBD south of West Pearl Street and located along Arch Street, Glen Street, and Whiting Street to the CBDR district. And the eighth item on today's hearing is item number 36714 to amend the official zoning map to change the T district located on Farmington Avenue from 331 to 375 Farmington Avenue to the A2 district. Are there any speakers for these items? Please come up. For the last one, you said?
Yes, ending in 14.
Thank you. 36714?
There's
Beautiful.
a microphone, there's a little face with like a wave. Just press that button.
That's okay. We run people through this all the time.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect. So the mic is now on. If you could just state your name and address for the record, and your time is right here, 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, hi, my name is Shira Maldonado. My address, 37 New Britain. And what else do I have to state? I'm sorry.
Just your take.
Okay. As I just wanted clarification before I give, my information. The T1 to, you're putting the lot is empty, and there used to be a 1-family house, and it's going to be built like a building there. Is that correct?
So for public hearings, we're supposed to hear your 3 minutes.
Thank you for explaining again. I've never been to this, so it's my first time. I would like to know that would like for you guys to know that I am against the lot to a building, just because I live at 375 Farmington Avenue. I've been living there for 21 years. I'm actually the superintendent of the building, and living there, I experienced so many things happen in that street. One, it's extremely busy. There's a lot of, it'd be harder for you to get out of the parking lot, you know, to be visible on the right side. And being that 375 is already a massive building of 64 apartments in it, I feel like having another building next to is just gonna create more chaotic on that busy. Okay, that's it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And are there any other speakers for these items? Another time, are there any speakers? A third time, any speakers? Do we have? Alrighty, so seeing no more speakers, we will move on to the regular meeting. The time is now 6:52 p.m. Alrighty, so the first item on our agenda for tonight is item number 36707, to amend sections of the zoning ordinances to address bright white window strung rope lights. Not yet. The motion needs to be made, and then we call people up. 6707, to amend sections of the zoning ordinances to address bright white window strung rope lights. May I have a motion? All right, seeing none, I'm going to move on to item number 2. The item on this agenda is item number 36708, to amend sections of the zoning ordinances to add libraries, art galleries, and museums as in the RO district. May I have a motion?
Refer with a neutral recommendation.
Is there a second? Second. Alrighty, so we have a motion to refer this back to the council with a neutral recommendation made by Alderman Connor, seconded by Alderman Russell. Let's see here. And it is at this time that I like to call up Jack recommendation.
Good evening, Jack Benjamin, Director of Planning Development. We have a few items in front of you, so as is customary, we'll roll through our presentation and then we'll read the city plan recommendations into the record. Jeff Cormier, our city planner, will begin. And for clarification, there was no motion made on item 36707, meaning we cannot speak on it. Okay.
All right, good evening, Council. Jeff Cormier, City Planner, and so I'll start with petition 36708. So you have a number of text changes and boundary changes before you tonight. So the first one I'll start with, 36708. That is a very simple text change, and that's to add simply libraries, art galleries, and museums as a permitted use in the RO district. So the RO district is the residential office district. It basically surrounds Walnut Hill Park. It's basically right next to the Museum of American Art. So it's quite suitable for those types of uses. It was just something we noticed that specific use, as we go through and do our revisions and go through the comprehensive review that we do with each round of these. It's just something we noticed that should probably be in there. Seeing that zone is already accommodates the museum, is in that area. And also, I believe there was a variance request we had from 2002, which is the picture in the upper right, and that's on South High Street. That's also in the RO district. That was a variance that was passed in 2002 for an art gallery, an artist studio. And the next one, so that was simply just adding the text as a permitted use in the RO district. The next one, minimum lot coverage. This is something you saw at the last meeting where we had gone through the impervious coverage. You had approved impervious coverages on all districts. And that one thing that we had to change was the I-2, because obviously you can't have a 100% lot coverage and 90% impervious coverage, because lot coverage only covers buildings, and that can't be higher than your impervious coverage requirement, which covers buildings, impervious surfaces, and everything else on the site. So that petition is to reduce it to make it compliant with the impervious surface at 90%. The next one is something, drive-through regulations. This is something that the majority of towns have in Connecticut, and these are regulations for drive-through uses. We do not have any on the books at all at this point. So this was an effort to go through and look at other municipalities and best practices for drive-through uses. And what those are, a drive-through use can be a restaurant drive-through use, like your typical fast food place. It could be a pharmacy, like a Walgreens, where you have the pharmacy drive-throughs, or a bank drive-through, or anything of that nature that essentially is a drive-through. Typically, you have dry cleaners, stuff like that, but again, typically it's restaurant drive-through, pharmacy, restaurant, pharmacy, and things of that nature. Banks, those are your typical three. Most towns have regulations, so this kind of came up when the Popeyes went in up on Hartford Road. A lot of times when a developer or a property owner comes in and they say, we want to build this here, what are your regulations? Because they're trying to design a site based off our guidance and our standards. So for something like that, we don't really have any. Most towns, looking at other towns, the most common things that are required, obviously, you want to lay out how many queuing spaces you need for different types of uses. Some of the things we tried to achieve in this that all the other towns we looked at, East Hartford, Norwalk, Newington, Berlin, Meriden, we looked at all of their drive-through regulations. And the most common things you have are related to avoiding vehicle-pedestrian conflicts, on-site maneuvering and circulation to ensure that there's safety between that. Also, if you have a drive-through use that's adjacent to a residential use or a residential zone, you typically want to make sure there's some type of screening. A lot of the towns even get into like loudspeaker requirements. So your drive up, the loudspeaker you speak into, ensuring it's not spilling tons of noise to adjacent residential properties, things of that nature. There were a couple towns that also require traffic studies as part of this. So the developer would be required to have an engineer do a traffic study and actually show your peak demand for different hours. So looking at all the various types of standards that towns have, the common things we wanted to add, we want to add some common safeguards around circulation, maneuvering on site, ensuring the pedestrian safety. We wanted to show the queuing for parking spaces. So I believe we settled at 8 for a drive-through restaurant, and for the bank was a little less. So some of the towns out there, just to give you an understanding of what other towns do, we had East Hartford required 12 for a restaurant, Norwalk was 8, Meriden was 10, Newington requires a traffic study right off the bat. So these are the types of numbers that you're seeing, and the vehicle stacking are those vehicles that are stacked up behind the drive-through window. You want to ensure you have adequate space on site for those. So we looked at Norwalk as a common standard, just requiring 8. Something else that we also did, which a couple towns had, we didn't require a traffic study, but it's hard to know exactly what type of drive-through use, what type of peak demands there will be. So if someone came in, wanted to develop a drive-through, and said they don't necessarily agree with our requirement, they could always have their own traffic study done that would show what their demands are, and it could be approved via the traffic study, which is also a fairly common thing. I think East Hartford allowed up to a 50% reduction of their requirement based off a traffic study being submitted. So it does allow a little flexibility to a developer coming in, so we understand, so you could offer the guidance up front, but if there's site conditions that necessitate some other number, it certainly accommodates for that too. So those are the main types of things. I had mentioned the towns that we looked at. Some of the other things, there are different types of buffers and some sort of more onerous requirements, but we just started with looking at general safeguards, again, pedestrian safety, number of queuing spaces, identifying how big a queuing space should be, and then how the site should be situated, and that helps provide guidance to people who are trying to do this. So that would be the establishment for drive-through regulations. And then next is the CBDR, which is Central Business District Residential.
Good evening again. So item 36711 CBDR is really an augmentation of our central business district zone. And it's an effort basically to do what a lot of our zoning, including all of the boundary changes that you'll see tonight, are attempting to do, which is to bring properties into compliance with the underlying zoning. And I'll repeat that because I think that there's an important distinction there. This is not forcing property owners to comply with zoning. This is bringing properties into compliance. These are properties that exist in an area where zoning was overlaid, potentially you could say inappropriately, or in a way that zoned this certain use out of the district. So CBDR is taking 3 separate areas of the central business district and focusing them on residential, thus the R for residential. So that basically, essentially, is everything north in the Union, Winter, Spring neighborhood, north of New Bright Plaza, south of North Street, south of Court Street, east of South High Street, and north of Walnut Street, and then the further south Arch Street block. All of those are places that have examples of solely residential properties. Anywhere else in the central business district, you are not able to have a parcel that is solely residential. The only other thing you can do with residential is have residential over non-residential first floor use. So again, this is attempting to bring these properties into compliance. The other thing it does is it does drop a couple of the dimensional standards a little bit to just require slightly less dense development in these areas of the downtown. And that is addressing limiting retail to 4,000 square feet or less, and then floor area ratio of 5.0 to 1 instead of 6.5 to 1, which is what the rest of the CBD has. Okay, and then on to the boundary changes. So the first one is Clinton Street and Corbin Avenue rezone, and again, this is a really classic example of trying to bring properties into compliance with the underlying zoning. So currently, this is all residential zoning on both sides of the street. You have T on one side and S2 on the other, S2 being a single-family zone and T being up to 3 families. Currently, if any of these business owners or owners of these mixed-use buildings want to make any amendments, changes, upgrades, or redevelop their properties, they have to go in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals for either a use variance or dimensional variance. The S zones, the single-family zones, are our strictest in the city when it comes to dimensional standards for building on a property, and so that's a really hard variance to prove when you go in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. So again, this is attempting to bring properties into compliance with the underlying zoning. Thank you. This is the boundary, so we just talked a little bit about the text amendment, and then this is the boundary portion of the CBD-R zone. This shows you the zones I just attempted to describe, which is essentially the sort of northern pieces of the CBD, current CBD zone, a little western portion, again, along South High Street, and then the southern one, which is Lower Arch Street. And then this final one is doing a couple things. So number one, it is bringing 375 Farmington into compliance. Right now, 375 Farmington is a 64-unit apartment building, which is out of compliance with the underlying T-zone. If anybody wanted to make any amendments, changes, updates to this property, they would have to go for a variance. It would be kind of a tough one to prove. Again, the most units you can have on a single parcel in T-zone is 3. This one has 64. And then we are scooping up a couple other parcels that are adjacent. One of the things we've discussed, as those are city-owned parcels, is doing a elderly facility there. And right now, it's based on the A2 proposed zone change. You could go up to 24 units, and traffic likely wouldn't be as big of an issue. The parking standards for elderly is 1 space per 3 units. Okay? And then we were on item 36708, so I will read into the record, and then we can take questions. So the City Plan's recommendation on item 36708, City Plan Commission recommends approval of the zoning text amendment. The RO district generally surrounds Walnut Hill Park and traverses the West End Historic District and Walnut Hill Historic District. It is adjacent to the Museum of American Art. This area is primarily composed of low-density residential and professional offices and is suitable district for this type of use. Great.
Thank you, Mr. Benjamin. Is there any discussion on this item?
Which one?
On item...
Number 2, right?
Yeah, item 2. It's 36708. Yeah, motion's made, we had the reading, and, all right. All right, seeing no discussion, all in favor of referring this back to the council with a neutral recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries. All righty. The next item on our agenda is item number 36709, to amend sections of the zoning ordinances from the, to reduce the maximum lot coverage from 100% to 90% in the I-2 district. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move,
Alderman Malinowski. Could you just turn your mic on?
yes, I move we refer the item back to the council with a neutral recommendation.
Cool. So we have a motion to refer this back with a neutral recommendation made by Alderman Malinowski, seconded by Alderman Russell, and I'd like to welcome Jack Benjamin back up for the reading of the City Plan Commission recommendation.
Okay, item 36709. City Plan Commission recommends approval of the zoning text amendment. The lot coverage requirement cannot exceed the impervious coverage requirement and must be reduced to 90%.
Beautiful. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion. Next item on our agenda is item number 36710, to amend sections of the zoning ordinances to establish regulations for drive-through uses, including vehicle queuing spaces, screening, and site design standards.
Chair, I make a motion to refer this back to the council.
With what kind of recommendation, Alderman? Favorable, neutral, unfavorable. All right, is there a second? Second. All righty, we have a motion to refer this back to the council with a favorable recommendation made by Alderman Russell, seconded by Alderman Connors. Let's see here, and at this time, welcome Jack Benjamin to read into the record the City Plan Commission recommendation.
Thank you. Item 36710, City Plan Commission recommends approval of the zoning text amendment. This amendment drive-through uses including restaurants, banks, and pharmacies. They are needed to ensure safe site design to mitigate conflict between vehicles and pedestrians and to protect from overflow traffic on the public streets. These standards include common safeguards found in other town regulations, including vehicle stacking space.
Beautiful. So, Alderman Santiago?
Just a question, so existing drive-throughs that are there now does not, they're grandfathered?
They're not.
Thank you.
This is for future review.
Future, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Alderman McNamara.
this is to catch, this is an item because it's not addressed in the existing ordinances.
Correct.
It doesn't stem from excessive developments and,
Correct.
yeah, and, for example, the Brittany Farms strip, the Starbucks
Correct.
into that, and you think if these regulations existed, would like the KFC up on West Main pass muster?
KFC's on, well, is it in a historic
That
district? There are other sort of overlaying issues with zoning in that case.
All right, no comment, I understand.
All right, any other discussion? Alderwoman Scott.
I was just wondering about the traffic studies. Like, will people,
No, I mean, it would generally be if it was necessitated by another part of the development that required a traffic study.
something that we might want to think about, like with safety concerns, so.
Generally, square feet, and I can't speak to that engineering, could give you a better idea of what that would be. But basically, new developments or major redevelopments, we would be requiring traffic studies. So your typical smaller, the KFC, which I guess we're picking on, would not necessarily necessitate one.
All right, seeing none, all in favor of referring this back to the council with a favorable recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay. The fifth item on tonight's agenda is item number 36711, to amend sections of the zoning ordinances related to CBD by adding a new district, CBDR, that allows townhouses, 2-family, and 3-family.
Make a motion to accept and refer to the council with neutral recommendation, item number 36711.
Okay, is there a second? Second. All righty, we have a motion to refer this back to the council with a neutral recommendation by Alderman Santiago, seconded by Alderman Connors. Jack Benjamin, welcome. Please read into the record the City Plan Commission recommendation.
Item 36711, City Plan Commission recommendation amendment. The CBDR serves as a less dense, lower intensity use area along the periphery of the CBD. It allows for residential uses that are existing but not permitted in the CBD, including 2-family, 3-family, multifamily, and townhomes. All permitted uses in the CBD are also allowed in CBDR, with the exception of a maximum size requirement on certain commercial uses. This will reduce nonconformities and support residential development in these areas.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Alrighty, the sixth item on our agenda is item number 3671, zoning map to change the S2 district located at 271 Clinton Street and 1480 Corbin Avenue to B3 district 1500 Corbin Avenue to the B3 district.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Santiago.
make a motion to accept and refer item number 36712 to the council with a neutral recommendation.
Beautiful. We have a motion to refer this back to the council with a neutral recommendation made by Alderman Santiago, seconded by Alderman Russell. Mr. Benjamin, please read into the record the City Plan Commission recommendation.
Item number 36712, the City Plan Commission recommends approval of the zoning map amendment. The S2 and T districts permit solely residential use on these parcels. However, they contain mixed-use buildings with ground floor commercial uses that reduces nonconformities with regards to use, dimensional standards, and parking.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item?
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Santiago.
this one I actually did go down the road, well, most of them I did, but this one, because it's around High neighborhood, it made sense. It's there with apartments on top, so it made sense to be changed over, so.
Is there any other discussion on this? Alrighty, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Alright. Seventh item on our agenda is item number 36713 to amend the official zoning map to change the CBD district located north and west of New Bright Plaza and bounded by Washington Street, North Street, and Route 9 to CBD R district, and to change the CBD south of West Pearl Street and located along Arch Street, Glen Street, and Whiting Street to CBD R district. May I have a motion? Alderman Malinowski.
I move we refer this item back to the council with a neutral recommendation.
Second.
We have a second by, what was it, Alderman Connors? Thank you. Read into the record the City Plan Commission recommendation.
Certainly. Item number 36713, City Plan Commission recommends approval of the zoning map amendment. The 3 areas proposed to be changed to CBD-R are characterized by 2- and 3-family dwellings that are non-conforming to the CBD. It's a large-scale development occurring in the downtown. The CBD-R serves as a zone of transition between the higher-density downtown and lower-density residential neighborhoods.
On this item? Alderman McNamara.
Jack, the CBD, these are the first,
Brand new.
yeah, in zoning, and this may be out of your league, but does this expand the tax district?
No, this has nothing to do with the special taxation district
That is
at all.
designated another?
Yeah, that's a
law.
completely separate process, and yeah.
Okay, thank you.
This is actually a question that was brought to me by somebody else. It was, considering that this district is already in the central business district, this isn't expanding the confines of downtown. This is the outermost portions of it.
Correct. Everything is within the current confines of the CBD that's being changed to CBD-R.
Any other discussion? All right, seeing no, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. And the 8th item on tonight's agenda is item number 36714 to amend the official zoning map to change the T district located on Farmington Avenue from 331 to 375 Farmington Avenue to the A2 district. May I have a motion?
Make a motion to refer
Alderman
back to council
Connors.
with a neutral recommendation.
Is there a second? All righty, so we have a motion to the council with a neutral recommendation made by Alderman Connors, seconded by Alderman Malinowski. Mr. Benjamin, please read into the record the City Plan Commission recommendation.
Commission recommends approval of the zoning map amendment. Rezoning this area to A2 district allows the apartment building site to become a conforming use.
Beautiful. And is there any discussion on this item?
Mr. Chair?
Alderman Santiago.
In public participation. So is this in writing or any kind of, about this elderly facility? Is it really-
The issue, I mean, the best part about these city-owned parcels is they're city-owned. So we get to control the disposition process. All of the public comments heard tonight are something that we are going to take into consideration, certainly, when we release these parcels via RFP. The plan here would be to rezone them, consolidate Russell and then release them via a request for proposals process. We would write the RFP to target for elderly housing. That's the way that we've seen it right now. There's a major demand for that in the city. People are on waiting lists for the Jefferson and any other existing senior facilities, and there really hasn't been a new senior facility as a major necessity. And again, you know, with the issue of traffic and parking, the requirement for senior housing number, which we think is likely where we would land, you would see about 8 parking spaces required on the site.
Now, traffic, there's an issue, because again, we have in the South Street and the issues with the elderlies trying to cross and they're getting, so that's my, and being Farmington being one of those heavy traffic areas, we would be doing a study on that also, correct?
I can't answer right now. But again, it's something we take into consideration when we would put the property out for RFP and see what kind of responses we received.
And they would have to come back to us anyway for approval.
They'd have to come, yeah. Well, essentially, unless they were doing it, unless they were totally by right. If we receive approval that is, or a proposal that is totally by right in the A2 zone, then
Okay.
then they're okay to build.
All right, thank you.
Alderman McNamara.
Switching from, into A2, is there a definition of multifamily in terms of quantity?
Up to 24 units.
4 units?
Yes.
So that's what we're dealing with, maximum?
Correct.
The
Unless
maximum.
they sought a variance, which we wouldn't necessarily
Yeah.
entertain.
Because there's another classification of high-rise, for example, or,
Correct, but it's the max 24 units.
Any other discussion? I do have a question just on parking. Is that for every 3, was it 3 units?
3 units for elderly housing.
Right. Is that compliant with the A2 parking requirements? Or
A2
are
would be more. You could, it's, I think, 1.5 spaces per unit is required.
Gotcha. So that 1-for-3 ratio, is that like a state law or?
No, that's in our code.
Okay.
That's only for elderly facilities.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, seeing all opposed, nay?
Chair, may I make a motion to
carries.
recall item number 1?
Give me 1 second.
That would be 36707.
All righty, we have a motion.
Seconded.
What's the motion? There wasn't a motion made.
It wasn't any.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you just turn your mic on?
I would like to make a motion to send it back to the council with a favorable recommendation.
All righty. Is there a second? All right, so we have a motion to recommend this item. Recommendation made by Alderman Russell, seconded by Alderman Malinowski. Mr. Benjamin, would you please read into the record the City Plan Commission recommendation on this item?
Yes, of course. Item 36707, City Plan Commission recommends approval of this. Thank you. Excuse me. Item 36707, City Plan Commission recommends approval of the zoning text amendment. Sign lighting should not be excessively bright or directed in a way that creates a nuisance for drivers or adjacent properties. Bright white LED.
Skip that portion of the presentation relating to this item.
Oh, yes, Chef, you want to?
Yeah.
Please do. Thank you.
Certainly. So this petition, 36707, with regards to illuminated signage, was specifically about, it was about, you have a lot of people who have different levels of lighting on signs, and so looking at our regulations, it was just meant to strengthen them a little bit in context with other towns' regulations on lighting. So some of the other towns we looked at, East Hartford, New Haven, Hartford, Waterbury, Farmington, and Bristol, just looking at their lighting standards. And the first 250-80-20.30, which basically indicates that light sources from signage is supposed to be shielded or directed in a way that it's not spilling light to adjacent properties. We were proposing to add a sentence that says, in no event will glare be visible on adjacent properties or public areas. That's common in almost every town regulation, that glare shouldn't spill onto adjacent properties or public ways. Some other towns had even further restrictions. I think Farmington had, after 10 o'clock, they can actually limit what lighting you have on your signage. If you're next to adjacent residential districts, some towns said it had to go off at a certain time. We were just trying to, through our ZEO, just strengthen that a little. And then the one after that we were gonna add, that says except in the CBD, permanently strung window lights are prohibited. What you're seeing on the bottom are some pictures of, that's actually a smoke shop down Newington Ave. And then the picture on the right, where it says example of permanently strung window lights, those are the types of lights that you see popping up in different types of establishments, again, commonly package stores and smoke shops. The bottom right is right on West Main. I believe they have some of those lights. But the point here is that those are excessively bright, where most regulations don't allow unshielded light out into a public way, and that's essentially what they are. These are just, they're permanently strung window lights that are excessively bright and can be distracting to drivers. So that's pretty much a smoke shop sitting there at the intersection in the dark. It's very bright. And so we are just seeking to add that sentence that actually prohibited those except within the CBD, which you would have that type of nightlife and vitality anyway with, you know, the Brit and the neon sign, and those types of things are permitted in the CBD. Outside of the CBD, where you're getting into areas adjacent to residential zones, you might want to not have those types of lights shining on them. So other towns that actually prohibited them, the same types of lights, were East Hartford and Bristol, specifically prohibited that type of window-strung rope light.
Alrighty, thank you. Is there any discussion on this item?
Mr. Chair?
Alderman Santiago.
Just to reiterate, this would just be for wherever businesses they're done now, correct? So whatever we have now is grandfathered in. So, for instance, the ones you're saying, they're already grandfathered in because they're already established, correct? Or you're saying you're gonna go back and?
Well, they're there. I think that, like, normally stuff like that doesn't require any permit. They just put it up. So clearly it's hard to enforce something that's already there after a regulation comes out. There is a sort of non-conforming aspect to it.
Well, see, that's my issue, because again,
Yeah.
obviously, we have a business that already has it, and then you have a inspector might have a grunt or something at that moment and say, hey, you gotta, I'm not just hypothetical, and then he'll say, hey, you gotta take those down. Already, they've been having it for about a year or some years plus, and now they're saying you gotta change because you're not conform to the new regulations. I just have an issue with that, because they already put the money in, it's already there. Again, obviously, we wanna make sure that any other practice before, afterwards would not, because we passed the same thing about the last couple meetings ago, that the storefronts, the smoke shops, and I noticed that 2 other ones were put up just recently. Yes, so that's why I was wondering if they were already in the works, and so. Just trying to make sure that we're.
Yeah, those types of things, so if like smoke shop came in, they got a zoning permit to operate, so.
Prior to this?
Yeah, to be non-conforming, you have to be approved by the city in some fashion. It was approved, it got a zoning permit, you're approved, there's nothing you can do after that. Yeah, I would say if you're at the point of something like this is relatively new actually, but if you're at the point of something like this where it is causing a distraction or is excessively bright, certainly action could be looked at by the ZEO. I don't think there's intent there to act on the ones that are already there, but I wouldn't quite classify it as non-conforming, because to be non-conforming, you had to get approval in the first place to do it. And typically lights like that, because they're just temporary lights that you plug in, which is also, I know why other towns restricted them, because when you don't have any permitting requirements, overheat, so.
All right,
Yeah.
Just trying to be.
I hear you, yep,
Again,
certainly, yeah.
Again, we have businesses already, they're established. Thank you.
No worries. I had Chairwoman Barbosa. I got
almost experienced an accident coming over the bridge, and those bright lights that are at that corner by that Liberty, because the lights were so bright I couldn't see. I understand where Santiago somehow, some way, because there's a lot of older people driving, and the glare and the brightening. I was driving behind a police officer trying to grab his attention to please turn off his lights. I can only imagine how many more people are having that same problem, and the last thing I want to do is come back into this room and argue and discuss about somebody being hit by a vehicle because they were blinded by these types of lights. Those that already have them up, I say leave them up, but we cannot have the entire city in some type of control. Some type of control does need to occur.
Thank you. All set? Alderman Connors.
Thank you. These do not apply to, any sort of lights that would be used in a residential context, so those very extremely bright installed lights in a commercial context.
Yeah, this is under supplemental for window signage essentially, so it's.
Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Russell?
Would you find this more to be a safety issue than an annoyance issue?
I think it was brought up by the CEO as a safety issue. And I can say, where you get, one little window like the night, it is pretty blinding coming off the building, and it's close too. But this, this was an example to an intersection. Even in the day, it's lit up, and then at night, it's all the windows. So the safety of traffic, because when you're approaching a light, they can be extremely blinding to vehicles and you don't want to have conflicts with pedestrians. So
Now, are most of these lights LEDs, or are they?
I believe they're bright LED or rope light. You can adjust light levels on that. I'm not sure.
I'm just wondering, that, people that did put money out, if it did come out, could they be adjusted, but-
Yeah, I know there were other towns that we looked at, New Haven, Hartford, had very extensive lighting for some of lighting, which was is fairly onerous. I don't know how you'd go out and actually measure the nits and stuff. Had it very simple, sort of addressing these types, and Bristol as well as East Hartford had very simple regulations that address them.
Alderman Santiago?
We're gonna go back to what we were talking about time, like, schedule. Is there a way possible we could probably add something for work, tourist some of that? Because like, I think the one in West Main Street Smoke Shop is on all day, the one next to McDonald's, and then the one where, Osgood, the furniture place, the Heaven something, they're lit pretty much all day long. So maybe probably some kind of time where.
Yeah, that's something we'd have to look at to see what typical hours of operations are for some of these businesses. We could certainly research that and look into that.
Thank you.
Because like I mentioned, I think Farmington had so after 10 o'clock, like they could have the light level or reduce lights or turn them off or something.
Thank you.
Could be an amendment that we could make during the council as well, correct?
I'm not sure if you'd want to do that without understanding the business hours of operations for a lot of these.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman McNamara?
To Alderman Barbosa's point about the tax service and the glare, is there anything identify a setback, top of the street and sidewalk, that sort of thing? Does the change, I think there's just 2 lines in the, could there be any consideration to that, like in the plaza on Allen Street? I get blinded by the businesses set back by that, the kind of lights I think you're describing. But is there a setback provision, or do you think down the road there could be in terms of use of that kind of lighting?
Sure. So the critical part is this is all established under window signage regs. So obviously, right now, just because of the prevalence of them, we're exempting the CBD from this ordinance. But the CBD that do have excessive lighting, maybe there is a way we can look into more detail about setbacks, either within a.
Alrighty, and I would just like to say back to Alderwoman Barbosa's point, the language we have in front of us does exempt the CBD present in that district. And so if this language comes about because of safety concerns, maybe it'd be worth just sort of goes back, but I believe Alderwoman Barbosa, go ahead.
I was gonna say, before we go ahead and go make this amendment, I think we should reach out to the business owners and see if their lights are LED adjustable, because the light a level down, they don't have to be that excessively bright, but for them to have to take it down after they safety issues, it's a different thing, but if they do have the remote where they can turn.
So the only issue is that's when we start getting into the not lumens, nits, the measuring the nits. So you'd have to have the zoning enforcement officer out there with a nit-o-meter or something, rights of way. We just didn't elect to sort of go into that level from our zoning enforcement officer's perspective. We're happy to do more research into it, and see if there's an appetite there for that granularity of enforcement, to, prevent proliferation of them in not the central business district.
And just that get wet tend to get shinier, right? So this impacts the glare conditions of all of the buildings around. I was wondering if, due to the way this is worded, if it rains in a building that is emanating light, which doesn't impose glare onto another building, if their zoning is okay, when it rains, if that building is now absorbing or reflecting glare from across the street, so to say, that would kind of bring that building out of compliance based on what would be considered an act of God. So I think having a more measuring nits or lumens, or if you want to take a candle and do the measurement that way, I think just having a more objective way to measure it would address these of abuse concerns that were sort of expressed earlier, and also clarify for business owners what is and what isn't acceptable for our zoning policy. Cool. Is there any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor to refer this back to the council with a favorable recommendation, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Back to the recommendation. All righty. So, we have a motion to adjourn made by Alderman Malinowski, seconded by Alderman Connors. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. We are adjourned. The time is now 7:35. Have a good night, everybody. Do not leave, though. We do have more items in another meeting. Yes. If you're a member of the Planning, Zoning, and Housing Committee, just hang out for a minute before we lose a quorum. All righty, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order the March 4th, 2025. We don't have a public hearing on this one, do we? No public hearing. So call to order the regular meeting of the Committee on Planning, Zoning, and Housing. The time is now 7:38 p.m. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll? Present.
Alderwoman Scott,
Here.
Alderwoman Barbosa, Alderwoman McAdam, Alderman Russell, Alderman Hargreaves. Alderwoman Sanchez is a voting member for Alderwoman McAdam. You have 7 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And the first item on, or, excuse me. Reading into the minutes we have to do? No? Okay, thank you. All righty, let's see. So the first item on our agenda is item number 36699, the purchase and sale agreement and development agreement. Have a motion.
Sure.
Alderman,
Move that we accept and refer to the full council with a neutral recommendation.
thank you. Is there a second? Beautiful. All right, so we have a motion to refer this back to the council with, you said a neutral recommendation, made by Alderman Malinowski, seconded by Alderman Russell. And at this time, I'd like to call up Jack Benjamin to read into the record the City Plan Commission recommendation.
Good evening. Recommendation from the City Plan Commission. The Plan of Conservation Development housing stock. The City Plan Commission recommends a favorable report on the purchase, sale, and development agreement of 25 Gilbert Street.
All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries. And the second item on our agenda is item number 36723, the conveyance from the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation of way parcels of land in various locations along Route 72 and Route 9. May I have a motion? Alderman Malinowski.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept and refer back to the council with a neutral recommendation.
Beautiful. We have a motion to refer this back to the council with a neutral recommendation made by, seconded by Alderman Russell. And I'd like to invite Jack Benjamin up again to read into the record the City Plan Commission recommendation.
Good evening. Item number 36723. The Plan of Conservation Development highlights several goals and objectives that are supportive of improving the city's roads. Report on the conveyance of 14 parcels of land on various streets adjacent to Route 72 and Route 9.
None, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Back to the council. All righty. May I have a motion? We have a motion to adjourn made by Alderwoman Barbosa, seconded by Alderwoman Sanchez. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. The time is now 7:42. Have a good night.